Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Adam Hopkins, and today we're going to talk about whether or not it's the right time to rent or the right time to buy. We're going to look at 6 considerations for people who are looking to rent or buy a home right now. And basically, as we're getting to the end of 2011, a lot of folks are wondering, is it finally more advantageous right now to go ahead and buy instead of continuing to rent, given the discounts in home prices and the mortgage rates that are at historic lows, and also considering the rent rates that continue to go up in our area. And the answer to this, it's not as easy as you may think. There are several things that you need to take into account. You have to look at your local market. You also want to take into account your personal finances, as well as the stability of your job, and then also where you expect the local home prices, what direction those seem to be headed, and what you can expect to realize on the sale of your home in the next 3 years, 5 years, and maybe 10 years on down the road, and compare that with what you expect rental rates to be doing. So, all these factors come into play. The first is you have to examine the housing market as a whole, and by that we're looking to start off with your price to rent ratio. And why that's important is you want to look at what your monthly payment would be if you were to purchase a home. And by that, you want to look at the PITI, which is the principal, interest, the taxes, and the insurance on the property. That's what you're going to be paying each month for your house. And you want to compare this with if you were going to turn around and rent a similar home, what that rent would be. So you want to compare those two. And we've seen in this area the vacancy rate is so low right now. Properties are just filling up with people who are renting. And as that's continuing to happen, the rent rates just keep going higher and higher and higher and higher. So in our area right now, it's actually cheaper to go ahead and buy a home than to continue renting, just from the month-to-month perspective. The second thing you want to look at is the additional costs that are going to be involved with that. And again, when you're looking at the PITI, you've got interest, taxes, insurance to go along with the principal, but you also have things that you want to take into account for if you're living in a community that has homeowners association fees. If you need to have somebody come and take care of the lawn, if you have exterior maintenance that needs to be taken care of. Let's say you have an older home that you're going to have issues with plumbing, electrical work that may need to be taken care of. If you have an older roof that needs to be replaced, factor all those things into account when you're searching for a home. Versus if you were renting, then that wouldn't be a concern of yours. So, number one, the housing market, the price to rent ratio is number one. Number two, the additional costs that it would be involved. Number three, just looking into the future of the local area. And with that, some of the things you want to look at is your area expanding or is it contracting? And the primary factor for this are jobs coming to the area or are jobs leaving the area. I know in this area right now, if you're an engineer, man, it's a boom in this area. Between the larger places such as Arriva, B&W, and some of the large organizations that we have, there are a lot of great jobs that are coming to Central Virginia right now, which means that we do have an expanded need for great homes. So if you're purchasing a home, and as it appears as of today, you're going to have that expanding market. But on the other side, if you live in an area that may be heavily manufacturing based, where you have some of those jobs that are being moved into other areas or maybe offshore, that's going to affect the housing market in your area. So take that into account. The next thing you want to do is look into your personal future and look at your job situation. Are you the primary provider? Is your spouse working also? And how secure are those jobs? And really, where do you see yourselves if you plan to be in this house in the next 5 to 10 years? If you're looking at maybe a 3 to 5% correction, meaning drop in property value over the next couple of years, but in 5 to 10 years, the prevailing wisdom says that those property values will come back up. So at that point, as you're building equity, if you're looking at a 5 to 10 year window, of course it's going to make sense to buy the home. Number 5, also looking at your personal finances, you really have to take a look at whether or not the down payment is going to be an undue burden on you. For instance, if you're going to put 20% down on a house or even 10% down on a house, how is that going to affect you? Are you going to have to dip into your savings or your rainy day fund, or does that mean that you're not going to be able to go out and do the things as a family, or do the entertainment that you've enjoyed in the past? And that doesn't mean that you have to have 10% or 20% to get into a house now. There are programs available through VHDA and USDA that are 100% financing still, believe it or not, where you can get into a home and preserve that capital. So you have those options to consider as well. And then finally, just think of the overall opportunity cost. If you are, homeownership is the greatest way for the average American to build wealth, just because of the equity that you're building up over time. But consider, if you have the discipline, perhaps renting is a better option for you. If you take the money that you would be spending on those expenses for home ownership, such as your homeowners association fees, if you're paying someone to cut the grass, if you're paying somebody to do types of maintenance for you, if you were to instead invest that into different investment vehicles. I'm not going to get into different options that you have there, because that's not what I'm licensed to do. But just consider that. So whether or not it's a great time to buy a home for you, it really just depends on your own individual situation. But just some things that are helpful to consider. Number one, examine the housing market and the rent to price ratio. Number two, consider the additional costs that are going to be involved each month. Number three, just look into the future and see what's coming down the pike in real estate. And number four, look at your personal future, your job situation and that sort of thing. Number six, think about the opportunity costs that are involved. So take a look at all those. If you have questions, we're here to serve. You can reach me at 434-444-7136. Appreciate you taking time to watch this, and hope it was helpful. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.